Okay guys, welcome for my next video taken from the VRroom pole position lap that I got recently. I'm going to go through a quick track guide with the car first, and then we'll go through the setup after. So I made the setup to be as consistent as I could. I wanted a stable setup, so remember guys, this is no assist at all, so if you run an assist you should be able to get in the 27s with this. Anyway, we're going to start the lap. We're going to go into 5th gear and we're going to hold it in 5th gear normally. Sometimes you can get into 6th, but I normally like to hold it in 5th gear there, you see there, and we lift off and just hold the left hand line there, and we turn in nice and early, get on, just skim the curb, don't hit it though because you might unbalance the rear end. Then we're going to come into the left hand rear and we're skimming the curb again, and then down into 3rd gear, skimming that curb. Then we might just hit 4th gear and then down into 2nd gear for the right hander, tight and early in on that entry there. And we want to get on the power as early as possible through this corner. We're going to go into 5th gear a little bit early so that we keep the car nice and stable, and we're braking just before the 50 there. We're going to go down into 3rd gear, hold 3rd gear, and then into 4th gear early and get on the power. That will stop the back end from spinning out, and we're going to use as much of the curb there on the exit as possible. Now on the braking here, we're going to brake just before the 100 on that black board on the left, you'll see. And then we're going to go down into 1st gear to get a nice tight line, then into 2nd, then hard on the power. And then we're going to really, these corners are really important. You're going to go into 4th, then as soon as you hit 5th gear, then back into 4th gear, you like off the throttle, just let the car swing in a bit to the corners, try and get a slight little bit of back end movement. It'll really help you through the corners. Then we're going to come into this bend, into 6th just as we get into it, and then 5th, and then keep it nice and tight on the curb, and then power, use as much as the curb as possible again there. And then we're going to brake just before the 100 again, and we're going to go down into 1st gear and hold a nice tight line on this corner, early on the power, and then flat out as hard as we can all the way to the finishing line. And it should be a time of 1:28.3. I think it was a pretty good lap that. I mean, it was over a second quicker than anyone else in the league racer did. It was a very competitive lap. I'd done a little bit of practice. I think if I had done more practice I'd probably be able to get that into a 27, but I only did maybe an hour and a half on that track. I quite like the track, to be fair. So we're going to go through the setup quickly with you guys now. Apologies for my voice at the moment, I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm just going to quickly go through this setup. Right, we've got the tyre pressures. I went a little bit softer, like a little bit less pressure on the fronts to the rear, give a little bit more grip on the front end, because we went for quite a balanced setup that was more stable than going to give us good turning. So as usual, the brake pressures and the brake balance this time was on 58 rather than 60 odd. I wanted a bit more turning because I was running running no downforce in the front and quite high setting on the back, and we were running a very low acceleration on differential, so I wanted a bit of turning from the brakes for some of the corners. The brake duct that is set up for the race, it was a 20 lap race, so I had it on 9%. I probably should have gone to about 15%, to be honest. I felt a little bit of brake fade coming in, like they were overheating a little bit too much, but it lasted the race fine, so you can get away with that. And you can also go slightly higher on the tyre pressures if your tyres are overheating. I found that my driving style kept the tyres in a really nice temperature anyway, so if you're finding they're overheating a bit, maybe add a little bit more tyre pressures than what I've got on there. Alright, so we're going to go on to next bit. It's as usual, it was set up, the fuel there's for the race, and the brake mapping all the way to the left. Nothing unusual there. So the gearing, not touched it again because the Porsche doesn't give you the RUF doesn't give you much option. Limited slip, acceleration slip 0%. That was to give us more grip on the corners, coming out the corners. Deceleration 100% as usual, and the preload 200 really gave us a good balance through the corners. Radiator again there, maybe should have gone up to 20%, not sure. It lasted, but I think it should have been a little bit higher. Right, the bump stop, we went very low for this because we wanted the car to be as planted as we could to the ground, because it's got a lot of braking points where you're just going over a crest of a hill, and it just unbalanced the car if you had the bump stop a little bit too high, so I went quite low on the bump stop. The slow bump, etc., and the rear slow bump and all that were quite aggressive to give us a bit of turning, because we were going obviously with the preload on 200. We needed somewhere to get the turning in. The fast bump was quite low again, a little bit higher on the front just to stop any oversteer from the rear tyres, obviously with the rear wheel drive. Let's have a little look. The rest of it was pretty aggressive. You see that's about 3/4 of the way. The ride height as low as you could on the front, and we actually went one click up on the rear to was it one click? Oh no, it was fully down on this track. Silverstone we went up a bit, 65, so it was as low as we could to get as much downforce on the car as possible. Let's see, the camber angles, we didn't actually go too high on this because I found that 1.9 and 0.5 give us a really nice balance on the car. I mean, Silverstone we went higher than that, but for this track it felt really nice. 1.9 and 0.5 downforce 0.5. As you can see there, that's one of the reasons why I did some of the other settings the way I did with the brake balance, because I had quite high downforce in the front and nothing on the front, and it really did work for this track. The car was, I mean, you'll see when I upload the VRroom race, it was literally 20 laps of no mistakes, consistent. I think I did a 28.8 in the race, and the rest of the laps were between 29.1 and 5 pretty much every lap. I think one lap went to about 130, but that was just because of a little mistake on the braking. It's the only mistake I made in the race. I can't wait for you to see the actual full race. Anyway, I hope this video helps you out. It should provide a really balanced setup for you guys. Remember, click